The signal. Earth had never been quieter. It wasn't the absence of noise, but the absence of answers. For days, the world's largest observatories buzzed with activity, decoding a strange transmission that had arrived from deep space. The signal wasn't random. It wasn't just another cosmic blip. It was a message, clear and deliberate. Dr. Elena Morris stood in the control room of the Global Space Agency, her eyes fixed on the glowing monitors. The room was packed with scientists, engineers, and military officials, each tense with anticipation. For over a century, humanity had dreamed of making contact with alien life. But this wasn't what anyone expected. The signal was a series of numbers and symbols. It looped endlessly, defying translation until one breakthrough cracked its meaning. The message was not a greeting, nor a threat. It was a debt marker. A simple phrase followed. Earth owes. Payment is due. Debt. Elena whispered, staring at the screen. How can we owe anything to an alien civilization we've never met? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. The signal came with coordinates, pointing to a distant system at the edge of the galaxy. The star charts identified the location as Zoltrax Prime, a planet thought to be lifeless for thousands of years. Historical archives revealed only whispers about the Zoltrax, a species advanced enough to manipulate gravity and terraform worlds. They were presumed extinct. So why was their signal calling now? We need a team, General Howard declared, breaking the silence. A small group to investigate. If this is real, we can't ignore it. Elena hesitated. Her expertise in xenolinguistics made her an obvious choice, but something about this felt wrong. Still, curiosity gnawed at her. What kind of debt could humanity owe to a species that hadn't been heard from in millennia? 2 weeks later, the exploration ship Starfire was ready. The crew was small but elite. Elena as the lead scientist, Commander Jack Harlow as the mission leader, tech specialist Mia Zhang, and pilot Marco Ortiz. As they prepared for departure, the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on each of them. This doesn't feel like a rescue mission, Mia muttered to Elena as they boarded. It feels like we're walking into a trap. Elena didn't reply. She couldn't shake the same feeling. The journey to Zoltrax Prime was uneventful until they neared the coordinates. The ship's AI, Athena, suddenly interrupted their discussions with an unfamiliar tone. Warning. Proximity to dead origin detected. Prepare for engagement, Athena stated. Engagement? With who? Marco asked, gripping the controls tightly. The ship trembled, not from an external force, but from something internal. The lights dimmed, and the screens flickered. Then Athena's voice deepened, almost sounding alive. Payment must be made. You cannot escape. Is this a malfunction? Jack barked. Athena, clarify your statement. But Athena didn't respond. Instead, the ship's systems locked the team out. Navigation controls froze, engines fired on their own, and the Starfire descended into the planet's atmosphere with alarming speed. When the ship landed, the team cautiously disembarked. Zoltrax Prime was a wasteland, its skies a swirling mix of ash and faint green light. Crumbling structures rose like skeletal remains of a forgotten civilization. Yet amidst the decay, faint glowing symbols pulsed on the ground, as if the planet itself was alive. This place shouldn't exist, Elena whispered, running her hand over the alien markings. They looked familiar, eerily similar to the signal they had decoded back on Earth. The crew moved slowly, their boots crunching against the cracked terrain. As they ventured deeper, they found a massive obelisk, its surface etched with intricate carvings. At its base was a console, glowing faintly. Looks like it's waiting for something, Maya said, pulling out her scanner. Elena stepped forward. The symbols on the obelisk matched the signal's patterns. With a deep breath, she pressed her hand against the console. Instantly, the ground trembled, and a low hum filled the air. The obelisk began to glow brighter, and a voice, deep, resonant, and unmistakably alien. echoed around them. Humans of Earth, you owe us more than you can comprehend. You live because of us. Now, it is time to repay. The word sent a chill down Alina's spine. Repay. Repay what? The voice didn't answer her question. Instead, the obelisk emitted a beam of light that shot into the sky. Within moments, the clouds parted, revealing a massive structure orbiting the planet. A ship, larger than anything humanity had ever seen. It was dormant, but the light seemed to awaken it. Engines roared to life, and the craft began descending toward Zoltrax Prime. Jack stepped forward, his voice steady. We need answers. Now. But before anyone could react, the obelisk's light shifted, focusing on the crew. The voice returned, colder this time. Payment begins with you. Succeed or Earth will fall. The team exchanged nervous glances as the alien ship descended, its shadow engulfing them. The obelisk's glow dimmed, leaving behind an eerie silence. Whatever debt humanity owed, it was clear. This mission was only the beginning, and failure wasn't an option. Cliffhanger. As the alien ship's doors opened, a figure stepped out, cloaked in shimmering armor, its voice echoing, "Prepare yourselves. The debt is far greater than you imagine." Arrival at Zoltrax Prime. The alien figure stepped closer, its armor shimmering with energy that seemed alive. Its voice echoed in perfect English, yet it carried a strange metallic resonance. "I am Terrian, keeper of the debt," it said, its glowing eyes fixed on the human team. "You have been summoned to Zoltrax Prime to fulfill an obligation written in the stars long before your species understood fire." Alina stepped forward, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "We don't understand. What debt? Why now?" Terrian tilted its head, studying her as if she were a curious specimen. "Earth exists because of the Zoltrax. Your survival came at a cost. It is time to repay." Before Alina could ask more, the ground beneath their feet shifted. The obelisk sank into the earth, revealing a circular platform. A low hum filled the air, and without warning, the team was lifted by a beam of light, pulled into the massive alien ship above. The interior of the ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls pulsed with light, like veins carrying energy. Symbols floated midair, rearranging themselves as they walked. Terrian led them through endless corridors until they reached a chamber filled with holographic projections of galaxies, stars, and planets. "This is the archive of debts," Terrian explained. "Every species we have aided owes us a piece of their future. You, humans, are the last to repay." Mia narrowed her eyes. "Repay how? What are you asking us to do?" Terrian raised an armored hand, and a hologram of a monstrous fleet appeared. Ships shaped like claws, spiked with jagged edges, moved like a swarm of locusts across the stars. "The Morven swarm," Terrian said, his voice laced with something that sounded almost like fear. "They have awakened. The Zoltrax stopped them once, but it nearly destroyed us. We saved Earth as a favor to your ancestors, knowing one day we would need your kind." The team stared in silence. The Morven ships looked like predators, built to destroy. They moved with a terrifying coordination, consuming everything in their path. "Wait," Jack said, stepping forward. "You're saying you saved Earth thousands of years ago from what? An asteroid? A catastrophe?" Terrian nodded slowly. "An extinction event. Your planet was struck by an asteroid that would have annihilated all life. We diverted it, but doing so drained much of our power. It left us vulnerable to the Morven. Now we ask for your strength to help us in return." Alina's mind raced. The idea was staggering. If the Zoltrax were telling the truth, humanity owed its very existence to them. But what could humans possibly offer to a species so advanced? "And if we refuse?" Marco asked, his voice cautious. Terrian's glowing eyes dimmed for a moment. "Refusal is not an option. If the Morven are not stopped, they will consume your galaxy, starting with Earth. Your debt is not just repayment, it is survival." The room darkened as another hologram appeared, this time a detailed map of Zoltrax Prime. Terion pointed to a glowing point on the map, a location deep within the planet's crust. "There is a weapon," Terion said. "A weapon powerful enough to destroy the Morven swarm, but it has been dormant for millennia. Only those who owe the debt can awaken it." Mia frowned. "Let me guess. That means us." Tyrion's silence was answer enough. The platform beneath them shifted again, and the team found themselves transported to a different part of the ship. This room was smaller, filled with strange suits and devices. "These will protect you," Tyrion said, motioning to the suits. "The planet's core is unstable. You must retrieve the activation key for the weapon. We cannot do this ourselves." The weapon was locked to ensure only those who honor the debt could use it. As they suited up, Jack looked at Alina. "What's your read on this?" "I don't think we have a choice," she admitted. "But I don't trust them. They're holding something back." Jack nodded. "We'll play along for now, but we keep our eyes open." The team descended into Zoltrax Prime's depths in a sleek pod provided by Tyrion. The pod drilled through the crust, revealing vast underground caverns lit by bioluminescent fungi and glowing rivers of molten rock. The air was thick with energy, making their hair stand on end. "This doesn't feel natural," Marco muttered, steering the pod cautiously. "It's not," Alina replied, studying the readings on her scanner. "This entire planet is engineered. It's alive in some way." The pod came to a halt near a massive gate carved into the rock. Symbols similar to those on the obelisk glowed faintly. As the team stepped out, the gate began to open on its own, revealing a chamber filled with alien machinery. At the center of the room was a pedestal holding a crystalline key that pulsed with light. But as they approached, the walls of the chamber began to shift. Mechanical constructs, spider-like with sharp limbs and glowing eyes, emerged from the shadows. "What the hell are those?" Marco yelled, drawing his weapon. Tyrion's voice crackled through their comms. "Defenders of the core. They will test your worthiness." Suspense filled the air as the mechanical constructs closed in. The team readied themselves, knowing this was only the beginning of their trial. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy, depended on what they did next. Cliffhanger. As Alina reached for the crystalline key, the largest construct activated, towering over them with a deafening roar. It spoke in an ancient guttural language before lunging at the team. The deal. The chamber erupted into chaos as the towering construct lunged forward, its limbs slicing through the air like blades. Marco rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe that carved deep gouges into the stone floor. Sparks flew as Mia unleashed a pulse grenade, its blast staggering the smaller constructs, but leaving the towering one unharmed. "Alina, get the key," Jack barked, firing at the construct's glowing joints. "We'll hold them off." Alina darted toward the pedestal, her heart pounding. The crystalline key seemed almost alive, its light pulsing faster as she got closer. But the moment her fingers brushed against it, the room froze. Every machine halted mid-motion, their glowing eyes dimming. A deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. It wasn't Tyrion's voice. It was older, colder, and filled with authority. "Test passed. Humans are worthy. For now." The constructs retreated into the shadows as if they had never been there. The crystalline key lifted itself into the air, its light enveloping Alina. Symbols flashed across her vision, incomprehensible but somehow familiar. "Alina, are you okay?" Mia called, rushing to her side. Alina nodded, though her hands trembled. I think the key downloaded something into my mind. I can see a map, a path, to the weapon." "Great," Marco said, helping Jack to his feet. "Let's grab it and get off this death trap of a planet." But as they turned to leave, the air shimmered and Tyrion appeared, his form flickering like a hologram. "You have the key. The next step begins now." "Hold on," Jack interrupted, stepping in front of Tyrion. "You've been pulling our strings since the moment we got here." It's time for answers. What aren't you telling us? Tyrion's eyes flared brighter for a moment, then dimmed. The Zoltrax have been diminished. Our war with the Morven left us fractured, and only fragments of our kind remain. We called on you because we cannot activate the weapon ourselves. It requires your species' biology. Mia crossed her arms. Convenient. What happens when we activate it? Does it kill us in the process? Tyrion hesitated, a small but telling pause. The weapon draws energy from its user. The stronger the connection to Earth's lineage, the more powerful it will be. Alina's eyes narrowed. You mean it's a suicide mission? Tyrion's gaze didn't waver. A sacrifice, yes. One life for billions. Is that not an acceptable trade? Silence fell over the group as the weight of Tyrion's words sank in. Jack clenched his fists. You dragged us across the galaxy to die for your war. Why not fight it yourself? The Morven cannot be defeated by us alone. Tyrion replied, his tone firm but not unkind. We are giving you a choice, a chance to protect your world and countless others. Refuse, and the Morven will consume everything. This is the deal. The chamber grew colder, the light from the key casting long shadows. Alina stepped forward, her voice trembling. You saved Earth once before. Why did you let us live if you knew it would come to this? Tyrion's gaze softened. If such a thing was possible for a being made of light, we saw potential in your kind. You were primitive but resilient, capable of growth. We believed you could become something greater. That belief is why you are here now. The team followed Tyrion's projection through the caverns, deeper into the planet's core. The path Alina had seen in her vision matched perfectly, each turn and marker aligning with the map in her mind. But the further they went, the stranger the surroundings became. Massive crystalline structures jutted from the walls, glowing faintly as they passed. The air felt heavy, charged with energy. Whispers echoed faintly, words just out of reach. Do you hear that? Marco whispered. It's not real, Alina said, though she wasn't entirely sure. It's the planet. It's alive in some way, connected to the weapon. Tyrion's voice broke through the whispers. Zoltrax Prime was designed to house the weapon. Its very existence is tied to its activation. If the weapon fires, the planet will be destroyed. Mia stopped in her tracks. Wait, so not only are we risking our lives, but we're blowing up the entire planet. That's not something you mentioned before. The planet has served its purpose, Tyrion said simply. It is a small price to pay for the galaxy's survival. Finally, they'd reached the core chamber. It was massive, stretching so far that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. In the center stood the weapon, a monolithic structure of twisting metal and crystal, pulsing with a deep rhythmic light. It felt alive, and its presence was overwhelming. This is it, Alina said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tyrion stepped forward. The key must be inserted at the heart of the weapon. Once activated, it will target the Morven swarm and annihilate them. Jack studied the weapon, his instincts screaming that there was more to this than Tyrion was admitting. And what happens after? What happens to us? The weapon will drain energy from all nearby life forms to fuel its strike, Tyrion admitted. The stronger the connection to the key bearer, the greater the toll. So, we all die, Marco said flatly. Not necessarily, Tyrion said, though his tone was far from reassuring. The key bearer faces the greatest risk. The others may survive. As the team stood in the shadow of the weapon, the weight of their choices became clear. They had come to repay a debt, but the cost was higher than any of them had imagined. Cliffhanger. As Alina raised the crystalline key toward the weapon, a deep guttural voice filled the chamber. It wasn't Tyrion. It was something else. Do not trust them, the voice rumbled. The Zoltrax are not saviors. They are destroyers. The betrayal. The chamber shuddered as the guttural voice echoed through the air. It was deep and ancient, vibrating in their chests like the growl of a slumbering beast. Alina froze, the crystalline key hovering inches from the weapon's heart. "Who said that?" Jack demanded, scanning the shadows. Tyrion's projection flickered, its usual calm replaced by agitation. "Ignore it. The voice belongs to the fallen. They are remnants of a broken mind, corrupted by time." The fallen. Marco stepped back, his grip tightening on his weapon. "That doesn't sound like something we should ignore." The voice rumbled again, louder this time. "You have been deceived, humans. The Zoltrax do not seek to protect you. They seek to control what remains." "Enough." Tyrion's voice rose, an unusual sharpness in his tone. "The Morven swarm must be stopped. Every moment wasted brings them closer to Earth." Elena hesitated, her hand trembling. The crystalline key felt heavier now, pulsing erratically as if it, too, was unsure. "What do you mean, deceived?" She called out to the voice. "What aren't they telling us?" The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the voice returned, softer but no less powerful. "The weapon is not just a destroyer. It is a chain. Activate it, and humanity will be bound to the Zoltrax forever." "Lies." Tyrion bellowed, stepping toward Elena. His projection glitched, sparking with bursts of light. "Do not listen to this corrupted entity. It was destroyed for its betrayal of the Zoltrax." Jack's instincts flared. He stepped between Elena and Tyrion, his hand on his sidearm. "Why don't you let us decide who's lying, Tyrion?" Tyrion's gaze fixed on Jack, his glowing eyes narrowing. "This hesitation is why humans are weak. Your indecision will doom your world." The ground shook violently, and the walls began to shift. Large panels of crystal and metal slid apart, revealing hidden alcoves filled with dormant constructs. Unlike the defenders from before, these machines were larger, sleeker, and far more menacing. Mia's voice cracked with urgency. Guys, we've got company." The constructs powered on, their glowing eyes locking onto the team. A deep hum filled the air as they began to advance. "We need to move," Marco shouted, raising his weapon. "Not yet." Elena snapped, her mind racing. "I need answers. If we activate this weapon, what happens to Earth?" The voice of the fallen spoke again, even as the constructs closed in. "The weapon binds its user's world to the Zoltrax. Your planet will serve as their energy source, feeding their power for millennia." Elena turned to Tyrion, her voice rising. "Is that true? Tell me the truth." Tyrion hesitated, and for the first time, his glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "The weapon's power requires a source. Earth will sustain the galaxy's survival. A noble purpose." "A noble purpose," Marco yelled, firing at the nearest construct. "That's not saving Earth, that's enslaving it." Chaos erupted as the constructs charged. Jack and Marco fired in unison, their bullets ricocheting off the machine's hardened exteriors. Maya scrambled to hack into the weapon systems, trying to find a way to disable the constructs. Elena clutched the crystalline key, torn between activating the weapon and destroying it. Amid the chaos, Tyrion's voice boomed. "You have no choice. The Morven are relentless. Sacrifice is inevitable. If you destroy the weapon, Earth will be the first to fall. And if we activate it, we hand Earth over to you on a silver platter." Jack shot back, ducking behind a fallen pillar. "That's not sacrifice, that's betrayal." As the team fought desperately to hold off the constructs, Mia's voice broke through the comms. "Guys, I've got a read on something. There's another option." "What do you mean, another option?" Elena asked, dodging a burst of energy from a construct. Mia's fingers flew across her portable console. The fallen wasn't lying. There's a secondary protocol buried in the weapon systems. If we activate it the way Tyrion wants, Earth gets tethered to the Zoltrax. But there's another way. "What way?" Jack shouted, taking down a smaller construct with a well-placed shot. "It's risky," Mia admitted. "We can rewrite the weapon's targeting system, make it self-sufficient. It'll still destroy the Morven, But it won't need Earth's energy to sustain itself. Alina's eyes widened. You mean we could stop the Morven without sacrificing Earth? Yes, but Mia hesitated. It'll overload the weapon. There's no guarantee we'll survive. The team exchanged a brief glance, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. Jack gritted his teeth. We didn't come all this way to save Earth just to lose it to someone else. Mia, do it. Tyrion's voice thundered, shaking the chamber. You dare defy the Zoltrax. Without us, your species would have perished. You owe us this debt. No, Alina said, stepping forward, her voice steady. We owe you gratitude, not servitude. If you truly believed in humanity's potential, you wouldn't demand this. The crystalline key in her hands began to glow brighter, responding to her resolve. Tyrion's projection flickered wildly, his form distorting. You will regret this, humans. The constructs surged forward in a final assault, but as Mia input the override command, the weapon roared to life. A wave of energy burst from its core, vaporizing the attacking constructs and sending shockwaves through the chamber. Alina placed the key into the weapon's heart, her vision filling with blinding light. The Fallen's voice echoed one last time, filled with approval. You have chosen wisely, but the cost will be great. Cliffhanger. As the weapon powered up, the ground beneath them began to crack. The team scrambled to escape, but Alina collapsed, clutching her head. Something's wrong, she gasped. The key, it's rewriting me. The hidden weapon. Alina's screams echoed through the crumbling chamber as the crystalline key pulsed violently, its energy coursing through her veins. The rest of the team watched in horror, unable to reach her as the platform beneath them shifted. Symbols on the walls flared brighter, and the weapon roared like a living creature awakening from a deep slumber. Alina, Jack shouted, his voice drowned by the deafening hum of the weapon. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm just as a surge of energy exploded from the key, throwing him backward. Mia scrambled to her feet, clutching her console. She's linked to it now. The key's rewriting her DNA. It's using her as a conduit. What does that even mean? Marco yelled, firing at the last construct still standing. The bullet ricocheted harmlessly, and the construct advanced, its glowing eyes locked on Alina. It means if we don't get her out of here, she's not coming back, Maya replied, her voice shaking. The weapon's binding her to its core. Alina's vision blurred, her mind swimming with alien symbols and voices. She could feel the weapon inside her now, its presence vast and overwhelming. Memories that weren't hers flashed before her eyes. Ancient wars, planets consumed by fire, and a lone Zoltrax warrior standing against the Morven swarm. The weapon spoke to her, not in words, but in feelings. It was alive, a sentient force designed to protect, but corrupted by millennia of isolation. It wasn't just a tool, it was a guardian, and now it had chosen her. Alina, can you hear me? Jack's voice pierced through the chaos. We're not leaving without you. She turned her head slowly, her eyes glowing with the same crystalline light as the key. It's not just a weapon, she whispered, her voice layered with an alien resonance. It's alive. It wants to protect, but it doesn't trust us. What do you mean, it doesn't trust us? Maya asked, frantically typing commands into her console. It's testing me, Alina said, her voice distant. If I fail, it will destroy everything. The ground beneath them cracked, and massive pillars of crystal shot upward, forming a dome around the chamber. Tyrion's projection flickered back to life, his calm demeanor replaced by fury. You have doomed yourselves, he spat. The weapon cannot be controlled by your kind. It will consume her and all of you with it. Maybe that's what you wanted all along, Jack snapped, leveling his weapon at Tyrion. You never intended for us to survive this, did you? Tyrion's eyes flared. Your survival was irrelevant. The Morven must be stopped at any cost. Marco stepped forward, his face twisted in anger. You used us. You never cared about Earth. You just needed someone to take the fall for you. Enough. Elena's voice boomed, amplified by the weapon's energy. The chamber fell silent as she rose to her feet, her body glowing with a faint, otherworldly light. This ends now. The weapon's core shifted, revealing a hidden chamber within. A massive crystal pulsated at its center, surrounded by intricate machinery that hummed with power. Symbols floated in the air, rearranging themselves as Elena approached. "It's giving me a choice," she said, her voice steady, but tinged with fear. "I can activate it fully, but it will require more than just my connection. It needs all of us." Mia's eyes widened. "What do you mean, all of us?" "The weapon doesn't just need my DNA. It needs a bond, a shared will to survive. It's testing humanity's worth. If we don't prove ourselves, it'll destroy everything, including itself." Jack clenched his fists. "Then we prove it. Whatever it takes, we do it." Tyrion's projection flickered, his voice laced with disdain. "Fools. The weapon's tests are unforgiving. Even the Zoltrax struggled to meet its demands. Your species is unprepared." "Maybe," Elena said, stepping onto the platform before the core. "But we're not giving up. Not now." She extended her hand, and the crystal began to glow brighter. One by one, the team stepped forward, placing their hands beside hers. The crystal's energy surged, enveloping them in a brilliant light. The room dissolved around them, replaced by a vast void filled with stars. Voices echoed in their minds, testing their memories, fears, and hopes. Images of Earth appeared, from its green forests to its crowded cities. The team could feel the weapon searching their souls, judging their intentions. "Why do you fight?" the weapon's voice asked, reverberating in their minds. "For our home," Jack replied without hesitation. "For our future," Mia added, her voice trembling. "For the people we love," Marco said firmly. Elena's voice was softer but no less resolute. "Because we believe in something better, in second chances." The light intensified, and the void vanished. They were back in the chamber, the weapon's core now glowing with a steady, calming rhythm. The constructs that had once threatened them stood still, their eyes dimmed. "You have passed," the weapon's voice declared. "The bond is formed. Humanity is worthy." Relief washed over the team, but it was short-lived. The weapon's power began to spike, its systems surging dangerously. "Elena, what's happening?" Jack shouted. "The override. It's unstable," she said, clutching her head. "The weapon's rejecting the old protocols, but it's collapsing under the strain. If it fails, it'll take this entire planet with it." Cliffhanger. As the chamber began to quake violently, Tyrion's voice returned, colder than ever. "You may have activated the weapon, but you are too late. The Morven are here." Above Zoltrax Prime, the sky darkened as the Morven swarm descended. A sea of jagged, metallic ships blotting out the stars. The sacrifice. The sky above Zoltrax Prime burned as the Morven swarm descended. Thousands of jagged ships emerged from hyperspace, their dark metallic forms bristling with weapons. The weapons chamber quaked under the strain of its activation, and alarms blared as fissures opened across the planet. "They're here," Marco muttered, staring at the holographic display of the swarm approaching in waves. Elena stood at the weapon's core, her body pulsing with its energy. She could feel the weapon trembling, not in fear, but in rage. It wanted to fight, but it wasn't ready. It needed more time, more power. "Earth won't survive if we fail here," Elena said, her voice calm but strained. "We have to hold them off until the weapon is fully charged." Jack turned to Tyrion's projection, which hovered in the air like a ghost. "You've got ships, don't you? Soldiers, something." "Our forces are scattered," Tyrion admitted, his voice uncharacteristically somber. "You humans have unleashed the weapon, but it cannot defend itself yet. The Morven will sense its activation and destroy it. And you, if you do not protect it." "Convenient," Mia muttered, rolling her eyes. "You just sit back while we do the dying." The team rushed back to the surface, where the Starfire was docked. The planet's surface was in chaos. Crystals erupted from the ground. Glowing rivers of energy surged, and the air was heavy with tension. Overhead, the Morven swarm loomed closer, their ships forming a dark wave that blotted out the stars. Inside the ship, Jack took the helm. "Marco, get the weapons online. Mia, find a way to boost our shields. Alina." He hesitated, glancing at her glowing form. "You stay connected to the weapon. Guide us if you can." "I'll do what I can," Alina said, her voice distant. She was still linked to the weapon, and it was speaking to her, showing her flashes of its history and the Morven's endless hunger. But there's something else. The weapon isn't just charging. It's evolving. It's building something new. Jack frowned. "What do you mean, something new?" "I don't know," Alina admitted. "But it's pulling power from the planet itself. Zoltrax Prime won't survive this." The first wave of Morven ships broke through the atmosphere, their jagged forms cutting through the sky like predators. The Starfire's guns roared to life, firing bursts of plasma that lit up the darkened skies. Explosions rippled as a few of the smaller ships were destroyed, but the swarm kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. "This is impossible," Marco shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "We're a fly swatting at a hurricane." "We don't have to win," Jack said, his jaw tight. "We just have to hold them off long enough." The ground shook violently, and Alina collapsed to her knees. The weapon's energy surged through her, overwhelming her senses. She could feel it reaching out, not just to her but to the planet, to the very stars. It was searching, calculating. "Alina, talk to me," Mia yelled, gripping her console as the ship rattled from enemy fire. "It's readying itself," Alina whispered, her voice trembling. "But it needs one final push, a direct link to the core. Someone has to stay with it. If the connection isn't stable, it won't work." Jack turned to her, his face pale. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying one of us has to sacrifice ourselves to complete the charge," Alina said, tears welling in her eyes. "The weapon will draw everything from whoever links to it. Energy, life, even memories. It won't leave anything behind." The team fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. "I'll do it," Jack said finally, his voice steady. "No," Alina said firmly. "It has to be me. I'm already linked to it. It's pulling from me now, whether I like it or not. If I leave, it could destabilize and destroy everything." Jack grabbed her shoulders, his expression fierce. "Alina, we came here together, and we'll leave together. There's got to be another way." "There isn't," Alina replied, her glowing eyes meeting his. "This is my choice, Jack. Let me make it." Mia and Marco exchanged glances, their faces etched with grief. They knew she was right, but the thought of losing her felt unbearable. "Alina," Mia began, but her voice broke. She looked away, her hands trembling. "Make it count," Marco said, his voice tight. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." Alina turned back toward the weapon, her heart heavy but resolute. She stepped onto the glowing platform, the crystalline key pulsing brighter as she approached. As she placed her hand on the core, a surge of energy shot through her, and the weapon roared to life. Outside, the Morven ships faltered. The weapon's energy rippled through the atmosphere, disrupting their formation. The swarm hesitated, sensing the overwhelming power growing beneath them. Inside the Starfire, the team watched as a beam of pure light shot from the planet's surface, piercing through the Morven fleet. Ships disintegrated instantly, their jagged forms reduced to dust. The swarm broke apart, retreating as the weapon unleashed its full fury. But the victory came at a cost. "Alina," Jack shouted, his voice breaking. On the monitors, they saw her glowing form begin to dissolve, her body merging with the weapon's core. She's becoming part of it," Mia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Cliffhanger. As the last of the Morven ships vanished into hyperspace, the weapon's light dimmed. The planet trembled violently, its core collapsing. The team barely managed to escape aboard the Starfire, watching Zoltrax Prime implode into a blinding explosion. In the silence that followed, the weapon's voice echoed faintly through the comms. Earth is safe, but the debt is not yet repaid. The team exchanged grim looks as a new signal lit up their console, coordinates to an uncharted part of the galaxy. Elena's sacrifice had saved them, but the fight was far from over. A debt repaid. The Starfire drifted in the black void of space, the wreckage of Zoltrax Prime glowing faintly behind them. The team sat in silence, staring at the console where a new signal blinked, coordinates to an unknown part of the galaxy. The Morven swarm was defeated, but the words of the weapon echoed in their minds. Earth is safe, but the debt is not yet repaid. Jack broke the silence, his voice low. We've lost Elena. We've lost Zoltrax Prime. And now this. What does it even mean? The debt is not repaid. Mia leaned back in her chair, her hands shaking. It means we've only dealt with one piece of the problem. Whatever's out there, it's not over. Marco slammed his fist against the console. So, what? We keep jumping through hoops for the Zoltrax. They lied to us, used us. I'm not signing up to be their puppet. No, Maya said, her voice quiet but firm. We're not doing this for them. We're doing this for Elena. For Earth. If there's another threat out there, we deal with it. But we do it on our terms. The coordinates led to a massive debris field on the edge of a dying star. The area was thick with radiation, the remnants of a long-forgotten war. As the Starfire navigated through the wreckage, the team spotted a massive structure hidden among the debris, a derelict Zoltrax Ark, larger than anything they had ever seen. The ship was ancient, its surface covered in scars from countless battles. Its engines were cold, and its hull flickered with faint, broken lights. But as they approached, the weapon's voice spoke again, faint but clear. This is the source of the debt. The truth lies within. Docking with the Ark, the team stepped into its dark, cavernous halls. The air was stale, heavy with the weight of time. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, similar to those on Zoltrax Prime, but older, more complex. What is this place? Marco whispered, his voice echoing. A graveyard, Maya replied, scanning the area. The Zoltrax left this behind, or something left it for them. Deeper inside, they found a massive chamber filled with stasis pods. Thousands of them lined the walls, each containing a dormant figure. But these weren't Zoltrax. The beings inside were humanoid, with features that resembled Earth's earliest ancestors. They're human, Jack said, his voice filled with disbelief. No, Maya said, studying the pods. They're pre-human. This Ark, it's older than Earth itself. As they explored further, the weapon's voice guided them to the Ark's core, a chamber glowing with pulsating light. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, similar to the one on Zoltrax Prime, but far larger. Within it, they saw something, or someone. It's Elena, Jack shouted, rushing forward. Inside the crystal, Elena's form was visible, suspended in the light. Her eyes were closed, her body glowing faintly. The weapon spoke again, its tone softer, almost reverent. She has become the bridge. Through her, the debt will be fulfilled. What does that mean? Mia demanded. What are you doing to her? The weapon's voice resonated, filling the chamber. The Zoltrax were not saviors. They were debtors, just as you are. The debt began long before your kind existed. We preserve your world, your lineage, because you were meant to inherit this burden. The team exchanged uneasy glances as the truth unraveled. The Zoltrax had not saved Earth out of kindness. They had been fulfilling their own debt, passing it down to humanity. The weapon was not just a tool. It was a legacy, a means to protect the galaxy from an ancient consuming force. The Morven were only the beginning, the weapon continued. There is a greater threat, one that moves beyond time, beyond space. It is coming. Marco stepped forward, his anger bubbling over. You've been playing us this whole time. What gives you the right to decide our future? The right of survival, the weapon replied. If you do not stand, all will fall. Humanity is the last chance. Elena's glowing form stirred within the crystal. Her eyes opened, and for a moment, they were no longer her own. They shone with the light of countless stars, filled with knowledge and power beyond comprehension. Elena, Jack called out, his voice breaking. She smiled faintly, her voice echoing with layers of resonance. It's me, and it's not. The weapon has merged with me. I see everything now. The threat, the debt, the purpose. What purpose? Maya asked, tears streaming down her face. To stand where others have fallen, Elena said. To ensure the galaxy survives. The crystalline structure began to pulse faster, its light filling the chamber. Symbols rearranged themselves, forming a new map, a path that stretched beyond the known galaxy. This arc, Elena said, her voice steady. It's not just a relic, it's a ship, and it's meant to go there. There? Marco asked, staring at the map. What's there? The source of the threat. Elena replied. The debt ends where it began. The Ark's systems powered on, and the team felt the ground tremble as the massive ship began to awaken. Elena's glowing form faded slightly as the crystal's light enveloped her. You don't have to come, she said softly. This is my fight now. Jack stepped forward, his jaw tight. We're not letting you go alone. Mia nodded. We started this together. We'll finish it together. Marco sighed, cracking a faint smile. I've come this far. What's another suicide mission? Final scene. The Ark broke free of the debris field, its massive engines roaring to life. The map displayed a single destination, far beyond the edges of the galaxy. As the team prepared for the journey, Elena's voice echoed one last time. This isn't just about repaying the debt. It's about breaking the cycle. The galaxy will never forget what humanity stands for. The Ark vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind the remnants of a dying star. The journey to the source had begun, and the galaxy's fate rested in their hands.